Well, good afternoon or good evening or good morning, whatever it is, as you're checking out this week's Devo. Hope you're having a good start to your week. I want to just rehash a little bit, talk about this past Sunday, just some things that came out in the sermon that I want to talk about, but also just before that, even I want to just remind you how encouraged I was. I hope you were as well to hear an update from Tammy Dahlman, who gave us a little bit of a recap of what's happening at New Dawn Pregnancy Resource Center here in town, and now also in Rhinelander, as she mentioned here on Sunday. Exciting to see what those folks are doing, the volunteers and staff over there as they minister to people going through a traumatic time, a time of an unplanned pregnancy. And the work that they do there is just a giving of life and a protection of life and an honoring of life that God has wired into us as Christians. So Tammy, thanks. All those who help over at New Dawn and those of us who support as well here at the church. It's great for our church to be a supporting church to New Dawn. So excited and encouraged by that, and I hope you are as well. And then I want to talk about 1 Peter. We continue to go through this series that we've called Basic Survival. And it's really just looking at what Peter's words were back then to a group of people living a life of faith in a pagan world. And in many ways, very different today, of course, than it was as Peter is writing this, but in many ways the same. We, here in the States, are mostly fortunate that we can live our faith the way that we choose to, right? We're grateful for that. And yet, we acknowledge that our country and our world around us is becoming more and more pagan, more and more resistant to God, or even uninterested in godly things, I would say. And so how do we, as believers, live? How do we make a difference in this world that we live in, that God has placed us? And that's what we continue to look at. Peter has given us lots of good instruction here. But this past week was kind of, a couple things stood out. First of all, a memory verse type verse. I remember learning it as a child, and maybe some of you do too. If you don't have it in your memory bank, I'd strongly encourage you to spend some time, even in the days ahead. One verse, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, that says this: "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." If you've put your faith and trust in Christ, if you've chosen to believe, chosen to follow him, then God reminds us, Peter reminds us through this, that God has chosen you to be part of his special family, his royal priesthood. We'll talk more about that in just a second, but we are God's special possession. He loves us and he chose us to be his people. It reminded me a little bit of what a great example Rick gave us to start. His opening was about this idea of, he showed us a few things of what do these things have in common. And he took us through a few, and then he took us to a bunch of the toys from the movie Toy Story. And the commonality between all of those is that they had one owner, that they were Andy's. In fact, Andy's name was written in a marker on their body, especially we think of, I picture at least, on Woody's cowboy boot on the bottom, it says Andy. And those toys are his. They may have been chosen by him at a store. They may have been given to him by parents, but those are his toys. They are his. They are his special possession. And that's kind of one of the main premises of the whole movie or series of movies. Peter reminds us and the believers then that we are special because of God choosing us and saying that we're his special possession, that we may remember that we've come out of darkness into his wonderful light. And then that other thing within that we are a royal priesthood. I loved how Rick reminded us that that all of us have been gifted to serve God. We've been gifted and given this job of reconciling people to God, not just those of us who are pastors or even elders, but all of us are part of the priesthood of believers. In fact, one of the primary jobs of me and any of the pastors and elders here at church is to equip the saints for works of ministry, of works of service. And that's what we all get to do. We all should be pointing people to Christ. We all should be shining our light in a dark world. You've heard that probably countless times on Sunday mornings and more. So, what has God called you into? He's placed you in this place. He's put you in Arbor Vitae or Hazelhurst or Boulder Junction or Manitowish Waters or Minocqua or any of these places here in the Northwoods for a reason. For this time in your life, He's placed you there so that you can make a difference, that you can make a difference in the place that you work or the school that you go to or the clubs that you or your children are a part of. God has given you the opportunity to be part of a royal priesthood because you're part of His chosen and special possession. And so I just want to encourage you this week, how might you live that out? How might you shine light into a dark world? We're going to keep going with this series this Sunday as we look again what it means to live a godly life in a pagan society. Join us. Hope you can join us on Sunday. We'll see you then. Have a good week until then.